Welcome, dear viewer. You have probably clicked through this video because you want me to discuss about the Koopa Monarchy. And that's what I'm going to do today. But let me tell you, this is very complicated. As you know, Nintendo hasn't even made a constructive information on this topic at all. According to them at least, it started with Bowser, and if he dies, it's going to go to Bowser Jr., and so on and so on. Now, as you also know, that is a very simple and lazy construct. That's like saying the British monarchy started with Elizabeth II, and then it went to Charles III. Of course. You see how lazy that is? And stupid that is? Now, due to the laziness and stupidity in that construct, many fans, including me, have tried to make a better construct, a better, more complicated and found its construct like, for example, FreezeFlame22 and his Koopa Monarchy sheet. It's online. Now, since there is a lot of these, I'm going to make one season dedicating to all of them in this series. And the first one is going to be the Koopa Kingdom Monarchy History Wiki, or whatever it wants to call it. It's a very complicated name, okay. Now, since this wiki starts in exactly the year 1000 AD, we must go back to the Middle Ages. Let's go! Now, here we are, the Middle Ages in 1000 AD. Well, this picture doesn't show it, but let's roll with it. Now, this story starts in the year 972, or to be exact, New Year's 972, in which Stanford Koopa was born to Alex and Ariel Koopa. Stanford, like most, lived a fairly normal life, with him being trained a warrior and him living with his brothers and stuff. Until something terrible happened when he was young. What happened was when he was young, as I've said before, a hellish warrior, or warlord in this case, named Surtur, killed his father and mother when he was young. As I've said twice, but okay. It turns out that Surtur was planning to become king of the entire Koopas and take the land with beyond grayscale, and we will talk about soon. Alfred took up arms and swore revenge on Surtur, and to kill him once and for all, and to become king of the Koopa. After many years of fighting, a war came to a head on December 31st, 999, in which Surtur killed Rutherford Redfang, one of Stanford's main friends and allies, and in turn, Stanford plunged his sword into Surtur's head, killing him. After Surtur's death, Stanford managed to conquer his land and unite all the Koopas, and on January 1st, 1000, he was crowned King of the Koopas, the first king of the Koopas. To secure his rule, Stanford made his best friend Horace Wells his major domo. In layman's terms, the major domo was the king's or queen's right-hand man. Stanford was acknowledged by the Koopas as the greatest ruler, or one of the greatest rulers. However, after only 8 years on the throne, King Beyond Grayscale of the aforementioned Koopa Kingdom invaded and defeated Stanford's kingdom in 1008. Stanford was driven into exile, but Bjorn refused to kill him because he killed Surtur, a hellish warlord, who was Bjorn's lifelong enemy. However, in 1013, Stanford returned to the Koopa Kingdom and overthrew Bjorn, sending him back to the Koopa Kingdom. Bjorn went back to the Koopa Kingdom after his defeat and overthrown by Stanford, and Stanford, after becoming king again in 1013, died in the year 1030. His death was greatly mourned. However, Bjorn Grayscale's usurpation of the kingdom in 1008 would start the tumultuous Viking Wars in which several members of the Koopa dynasty and the Koopa dynasty would fight it out to see who would rule the Koopa kingdom. For the sake of time, I'm going to shorten the Viking Wars so we can go a lot faster, as said before. After Stanford's death in 1030, he was succeeded by his son Richard. However, Richard had no idea how short his reign would be, as Bjorn's son, Eric, would overthrow him in a 4-day war and have him killed. Eric would have to fight Jonathan Koopa, the younger son of Stanford, until he died in 1045 after a 15-year reign. He was succeeded by Mungandir, who ruled for 10 years but fought Jonathan in a war. During a battle, Jonathan started losing the tide, so he proposed a duel in which he slew Mungandir and became king of the Koopa. Despite his successful reign, Jonathan's succession was not secure. His son Steve was killed by the invading king Sven, Mungandir's son, in 1068, and his daughter Elizabeth was driven into exile. Sven ruled for 26 years before being defeated and overthrown by Benjamin, Jonathan's grandson. Axel, Sven's son, brutally decapitated Benjamin in 1110 and drove Xavier into exile. When Axel died in 1135, Xavier took over before being killed by Sigurd, Axel's son, who died in 1144. In 1144, Sigurd died in his sleep. His son Canute Greatfang didn't want to contend with Alfred, son of Xavier, who was living as an exile, who was 14 years old, so Canute agreed to a peace treaty in which Alfred would become king of the Koopas, and the Vikings of the Koopas parted ways. Alfred was not particularly a good king. He may have been an improvement over his father, but his mother was a woman named Janice Blackfoot, which meant that he had favoritism to the House of Blackfoot. This favoritism led to civil wars against the family of the Pythons, as Alfred had to contend his reign through that conflict. The conflict started when Ramses Blackfoot, Alfred's grandfather, pestered him into putting him in his warrior cabinet. This was seen as favoritism by Bartholomew Python, which started a war, but Alfred ended up warding the Pythons off, only warding them off. Alfred would later die fighting the Pythons from sustainment of injuries in 1173, but that's way too far. However, Alfred was troubled with his succession. He had two sons, Sigeru and Arthur. Sigeru proved to be a psychotic monster who usually killed and violated his tutors. Alfred told to Sigeru that if he did not fix his ways, he would make Arthur the heir. That idea fell through when Arthur was killed during his marriage. Sigeru became even more psychotic after that, and Alfred in 1173, while he lay dying, talking to Melvin, his last words were, "It didn't matter if I killed the Blackfoots or not, because we all know Sigeru is going to kill them anyways. And next time, we will talk about Sigeru and how he ruined the Koopa kingdom and plunged into crisis for 100 years.